Hey, it's Luke from Sunworks here again. What we got going on today is we're going to go step by step on how to replace the top stepper motor on the arm of the Norvell Auto Revolution Plus. So what we're going to do is we make sure we have the power unplugged to the booth, and when we do that, that allows me to take this arm away from the home position. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one spot high and one spot low, and you just pull with even pressure to move the arm. And the reason we're moving the arm is just to gain access to both sides of the arm, makes it easier to work on. So once we've moved the arm away from that home position, we're going to remove what's called the top shroud. And you can see as we go around the front here, there's about maybe 7 or 8 3mm screws. And we're just going to unscrew those. Now I'm over on the other side of the arm. I've got the screws from here all the way over already undone, and I have 2 screws left. What you want to be careful of if you're working by yourself, when you get to the last screw, just make sure you support this top shroud so that it doesn't fall down and potentially crack and break. Okay, so now we've got that shroud removed, and that exposes that nylon chain, and inside of here, that's the actual stepper motor. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take off, it's another shroud that covers the top of the arm, and that's going to allow us to get to the electrical connections for the power on that stepper motor, and also allow us to remove this arm. This top shroud's kept on by 3 screws on this side and 3 screws on the other 2.5mm. So now that we have all of those screws out, what we can do is we just take this shroud and just lift it off. And then that exposes, you'll see that square right there is the top of the stepper motor. Now, once we've disconnected all those connections up top, in order for us to be able to actually remove this arm, we're going to need to also remove this lower shroud so that we could pull the entire arm away from the booth. And we do that by just unscrewing these 7 or 8, also 3mm screws going around the front here. So now we've removed that bottom shroud, and you can see there's another stepper motor here at the bottom, and that exposes that. But this is going to allow us to take this arm and remove it from the booth. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these connections, and in order to remove the arm, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take out all of these pins, all the pins down here, and then also these tubes here are the actual solution lines. All very easy, quick disconnects. This one in particular on this booth looks like there was a service call prior, maybe for a bad connector or something like that. So this one has a little bit of a different connection on it for now, but still all easy disconnects, and same thing with all of these. So we'll go through and we will disconnect all these. One thing to keep in mind here is they are all numbered, except for this first one. This one's not numbered because this goes right to the stepper motor. So no need to actually disconnect this in order to remove the arm. This one can stay. But the others, you'll see on here, for instance, number 2. This next one has number 3. This one here. Kind of hard to get to here, but that's probably going to be our 4. Yep, there we are. And they all have corresponding numbers on the other sides. So you can see these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everything that disconnects, you just plug back up number by number. Now I've got most of these disconnected. Still what we have to do is disconnect this air hose, and then what I wanted to show you, and you can see I've put my gloves on because when you start to take these lines off, they are full of solution, so you may want to get some gloves because they will leak a little bit. But what I wanted to show you here is these are quick disconnect tubes for that. And what you do is when you want to take it out, you take your, you see that little ring, you push it in, and that allows you to pull the tube out. When you're putting it back in, you just push in till it stops, and you see it's nice and snug fit. Push that ring in, and that allows you to pull the tube out. So again, almost all our connections are done. Then we're just going to take this hose clamp, undo this with a flathead, and that'll release our air tube. So now the last thing holding this arm on are these 6 bolts that are a 5mm. And this is a good time. What you want to do, you can unscrew probably 4 of these, leave 1 on each side, and then maybe grab a helper to hold this arm up off the floor while you take out the last 2 bolts, and then the arm can freely be taken away from the booth. So in this particular instance, because of this connector, these connections were on this side of this mounting bar. I opted to leave them in. So what we're doing here is we've just taken the arm off now. You can see all 6 bolts are gone. The arm is now just over here. We had enough slack to leave it connected. If you still had 6 good connections here, you could just take this arm and rest it aside somewhere out of the way. But now you'll see it's exposing the whole upper stepper motor that we're going to take out next. And the only thing holding it in now are these 2 on this side and 2 on the other side bolts. So we've got the old motor out, and what I wanted to show you is kind of an indicator that it's bad is when I spin it, you can hear a clicking sound, and now actually it's stuck. Won't go anymore in that direction. So you hear that clicking sound, that's the old one. And here's a new motor. Just moves nice and smooth and quietly. So now what we're going to do is show you how to put that all back together with the new motor. Okay, so here's the opening where we're going to fish the new motor in. Okay, so it's going to mount up in here like this. And these are the 4 spots where I took the bolts out. And what I'm going to do for now is just finger tighten . So while I'm finger tightening these, what you can see here is that there's a little bit of play in these channels. And what you want to do when you're putting the new one in is you want to make sure that these teeth are nice and snug up against the nylon track. And that'll make sure that the arm moves perfectly. If it's too far away, you'll get some slipping in the movement of the arm. So I just kind of press it against the blue nylon as I tighten it up. One thing you want to do when you're putting these 4 bolts back in is don't tighten any one bolt, because what you want to do is make sure you can get all 4 threaded before you tighten them all up. So if you tighten one too far in, the other holes may not align properly. So now we've got the motor mounted in, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the arm, put it back into place. And now it's just resting on the floor right now, so you can see the gap here. But we want to make sure we have all of our wires and everything that's going to get connected back in up out of the way so they don't get pinched in there. Then we're going to take these bolts down through here. And again, if this is a good time, if you've got a helper, what they can do is help you just raise this arm up and thread these 6 bolts back in. Okay, so now we've got the arm all bolted back on. All 6 of those screws are nice and snug and tight. So what we're going to do now is take the air tube, push that back on, go ahead and tighten this down with the flathead screwdriver, and then we're going to go through again. Remember, with this what we want to do is we want to start at the bottom. With these solution tubes, we're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top. So that way you have enough room to get your fingers in there and make all the proper connections. So now what we've done is we've got all of those connections made up top, and before we put all of our top shroud and this other shroud and our bottom shroud on, we want to make sure that the connections are all good and that everything works. So what we can do with the booth still partially assembled is go ahead and plug the power back in. So that's going to reboot our booth, and then if everything works, we'll see that top motor start to spin, and the arm and gun and everything go to that home position. Yep, all looks good there. There you go. So what we can do now is start putting those shrouds and everything back on. Okay, so we've got the lower shroud on. We went ahead and tightened all of these screws. One thing you want to be careful of when you're redoing this bottom shroud, do not over tighten any of these screws. And that really goes for anything that you're ever screwing in. Don't over tighten, because then next time you need to go and take them out, there's a chance that they're going to get stripped. So we've got that bottom shroud on, and what I've done now, in order for me to really gain good access to being able to tighten down that top shroud and to get this other shroud on, I've unplugged the booth again and I've pulled the arm back out to center. It just gives me a little room to get my ladder on both sides of these shrouds. Again, when you're moving that arm, got to make sure there's no power to the booth and that you grab it in two spots and move it evenly out to the center so that you're not racking that arm. Okay, so now we've got all of our shrouds on. Got our top shroud on. The top shroud that goes on top of the arm is on. Got our bottom shroud on, and now once you've put all these on, plug the booth back in. We're going to make sure that the arm has some nice even movement. Arm goes home properly. And then of course, after any sort of technical replacement of any parts, you're going to run a test session, make sure everything works properly.